Yes, sure. Sorry.
We're moving on to our third book talk.
Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Annika Törnläggstin and I'm the chair of Fotoförfattarna. It's like photo authors in Sweden, within Swedish Association of Professional Photographers. And we are pleased to present this talk in collaboration with Landskrona Photo Festival. And we like to thank the participants for coming here and talking about this subject. And also we would like to thank Jenny Linde for the collaboration and who made this possible. We invited two publishers to present a photo book that they were inspired by and that they wish they had published themselves. And here we welcome Matilda Plöjel, founder of Sailor Press, in conversation with Pedro Guimarães, Tiago Casanova, and Hans Grimmen from FW Books and XYZ Books. Is that correct? Hans Grimmen is a graphic designer based in Amsterdam. He worked in the field of photography, architecture, and fine arts, and has designed over 300 books and won various awards for his experimental designs. And I think you also can see books over there that the publishers have. In 2008, he founded publishing house FW Books with a focus on photography related to projects and books. I need to have this fusklapp. XYZ Books with Pedro Guimarães from Portugal is a visual artist with an MA in photographic studies from University of Westminster in London, co-founder of the publishing house and bookstore XYZ Books, with a focus on publishing and artist books, independent publications, and photography books. Tiago Casanova, from Portugal as well, is a visual artist with a master in architecture, co-founder of Scopio magazine. Is that correct? And XYZ Books, and Ilha and Studio Bulfas also works as an editor, bookmaker, curator, and exhibition designer. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Yes. So it's super nice. Welcome to Sweden and welcome to Landskrona. It's really nice to have you here. And I will try to be some kind of moderator conversation partner. So we will start by the publishers introducing their chosen books, and then we will go on to have just a conversation about what makes that dream book happen. When it's so perfect, you just want to have published it yourself. So maybe Hans, if you would like to, is it FW Books or is it Forward Books?
Both fine.
Both is fine,
Yeah,
yes.
fine, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not the abbreviation, the publishers are abbreviations here. It's
No, it was abbreviation, but it's actually technically a wrong abbreviation, so
yeah.
it's okay. Everything is fine.
Everything great.
It's not working.
Hello?
Oh, can you hear?
Okay. And now it's working?
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's all fine.
It's all fine. Yes, it's all fine, and you will start to introduce the book for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the question, like which book I would have liked to publish. I like to use this as a thinking exercise, always these kind of questions, and then my head goes all directions, so I wrote things down to somehow at least have some sort of structure. This is the book I will talk about. It's in the background just randomly playing. Which book I would like to have published? Some classics directly came to mind. Wisconsin Dead Trip by Michael Lisi, Learning from Las Vegas by Venturi, Scott Brown and Isanor, American Pictures by Jacob Holt, the Stockholm Catalogue by Andy Warhol, and many more. But although I really appreciate these books, and they have shaped me as a designer, publisher, and maybe even as a human being, I don't have a personal connection to these artists. Therefore, I couldn't have published these books, because for me, publishing is about connecting people and collaborating. Realizing this made me look at books made by people that I know, which I could have imagined to work with. The book you see here is, due to lack of interest, tomorrow has been cancelled by Dutch photographer Sanne Peper. She offered the book to us to publish, but I turned it down. A short introduction how and why we went into publishing. When we started in 2008 as a publisher, we didn't really have a plan. We were an artist collective of 3 photographers and me, a graphic designer. Since 2004, we were making exhibitions and zines and organized talks and discussions. In 2008, we went into publishing because a major art publisher in the Netherlands went bankrupt, and many of our friends published books with them. Overnight, they lost their books, including the rights to their books. Collectively, we made a bank an offer to buy the books and the rights back. They accepted our offer, and a week later, a big truck delivered 93 boxes at my home address. Then I realized publishing is basically moving boxes, and that it's hard work to get them to the right places. We learned by doing. We set up a web shop, connected with a distributor, and went to fairs such as these. This way our network expanded and books slowly found their way back to the world. We also started to publish new books with friends and other like-minded people. The first years we published a maximum of 1 to 3 books a year, and now we publish up to 12 with a maximum of 15. Nowadays, FV Books is run by 2 people, by photographer Petra Stavast and me. Ever since we started FV Books, people approached us with their book projects. When these proposals first came in, we thought we should have a policy how to look at them and how to judge these. We came up with one simple rule. The rule was that always one of us should be involved in the conceptual part of the productional part of the book. They could be as an editor, image editor, designer, initiator, or somebody in the practical production. This way there was always a shared attitude in our publications, which would make our backlist a coherent set of books. For a long time this is how we operated. Also in 2013, when Sanne Peper approached us with this book. She was working with the graphic designer Michael Schnittke, and basically the book was in a finished state. I looked at the work and I liked it. I read the texts and I liked them. I looked at the design and I liked it. But I turned it down because it was too finished. And we didn't really have anything to add as a publisher. The book was published with another publisher and it was quickly sold out. You could say it found its way and we kept true to our rules. Everybody should be happy. But then I ran into Sanne a few years ago and we talked about her book. And at a certain moment I told her I had always regret turning it down. When the book came out, I bought it and quickly realized I made a mistake. The rule about our involvement in the process was about preserving a coherent structure, which I think is still an important ambition for a publishing house, because it determines one's identity. But I made the mistake in the application of this rule. I translated it into some sort of pragmatic tool set. You could say I was the tourist who was so busy staring at his map that he doesn't see the landscape he's in. A shared attitude is not always the result of directly working together. It can be the result of a shared interest and a common artistic ground. By joining forces, new perspectives are generated in both directions. There's no need to change one's view if he or she is already looking in the same direction as you are. This book by Sanne Peper made me change my way of looking at proposals and our role in these proposals. Still, we have an important say in most of the books on all levels of design, editing and production, but every year we publish 2 or 3 books which are made without too much or any interference of us. These titles make our backlist more interesting and experimental and layered. And this way our network becomes more diverse and simply more fun. You could say that due to lack of rules, tomorrow will be full of surprises.
Thank you very much, Hans.
Welcome.
Would you like to talk about the book you've chosen?
So Pedro will present. I'll be.
Yeah, maybe. Can you hear me? Maybe I should start explaining a little bit about us. I think, unlike most publishing houses here, we're maybe one of the few who is not run by designers. So we are photographers, and I think that creates a distinction in our approach to bookmaking. So what we bring here, it's something that goes back to the beginning of our establishment as a publishing house, and it's actually one of the inspirational books we found in our careers. So that's the one I bring here. Maybe you want to show. So it's this book. It's called Aircraft. The original title is L'Avion Accuse. It's made by the French architect Le Corbusier. Can we know? So it's basically, it's not his work, it's a commission work. So this magazine called Studio, they hire Le Corbusier to compile this number of pictures and to write text to bind everything together in a book that is supposed to demonstrate society what aviation has to bring to what new things, what new huge revolutions aviation will bring to society. So. Now you have it, like, so you can see, oh, maybe go back to the cover. So you see here, like, there's like a dust jacket, and this is like, so there's another cover hidden behind this dust jacket. And you open the book, can you just move on a little bit? And the first thing you see is like, oh, I have to say that this book dates back from 1935, and my first contact with the photography books is probably like 2006 something, and at the time I thought that photo books was a new thing. So, and then I find this book, and it's like, wow, this thing is here for a century at least. I was so naive. So I started looking at this, and I realized that pretty much everything, all the dirty tricks, photographers, publishers, designers use, they are here already. So of course, like, this is kind of like, introductory, inspirational work that, of course, left a mark on us and me especially, and helped me make my first book. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's here just in case anyone wants to see it. So when you flip through these pages here, you are confronted with like lots of pictures of aircrafts. Aviation is an hobby of, like, it's something I'm interested into a lot, but the reason why I was also like so struck with this book is because it looks like it's talking about aviation, but it's definitely not talking about aviation. And that's also a device that is very commonly used in photo books. You use images to talk about some things that are not in those images. So this was one of the most important things that I learned from a photo book from the early 30s. So this guy, he was given a commission, and he turned everything upside down, and he's talking about his own social utopias and his own ideas, and it's nothing to do with, like, of course he's in love with aesthetics of aviation and everything, but it's just a device to, you know, introduce new ideas, and that was for me the most inspirational aspect of this book. And of course, like flipping through the pages, you see that, well, first, like, this guy is like, there is no rules, right? Like each page is a different page. There is no layout, like, so it's like, just seems like there is like a totally different approach in every single page. I like this a lot. Also like the boldness of the use of text blocks, like the way they are placed, like so close to the, like if you are used to printing books, you know, this is like almost suicidal, you know, like, you know, it's like you are paying to make it go wrong, you know, like when you play on the edges, like, so, and this is like something like, okay, one day I want to try this. I didn't try this on the first book, so I'm leaving it for later until I master completely the art of printing. But yeah, so it's like, it's all here. And of course, another thing is like, you look at this, so I guess, you know, today you are used to use Google Maps and Google Street View as like a normal thing on our daily lives. And again, you see like this guy, Le Corbusier, was like introducing us to Street View in 1935, putting it on a book and explaining us, if you read the text, he is saying all the details, like why this kind of God's view is going to change the way we see ourselves, we see our cities, we see our societies, and how this is going to, you know, revolutionize the way we build things, the way we, you know, we design our environments. I think at some point he says, like, look at this, like, we are rats, right? Like, we are filthy rats in, you know, these dirty cities. We have to rethink everything. But of course, his ideas were perhaps, as we know, too wild, too utopian, and too destructive, and perhaps we need to be these little rats still, at least for a while longer, until we find something better for ourselves. So, yeah.
Can I explain how you went from there to there?
Yeah, so just now very quickly, so these were supposed to be my notes, but yeah, I just put them here. So I'm gonna quickly explain you. I was having a conversation together yesterday, and Matilda was like telling me, like, oh, I don't see the connection. I mean, I see some links, but I don't see, like, you know, I don't see how we went from one thing to the other. And I explained Matilda, well, of course, like, I didn't want to, I'm not a designer, I'm not looking at this with a designer eyes. For me, it's like, this was like just a research tool for communication devices, for, you know, narrative strategies. So I'm not just copying the design, I'm just getting some things from here. And, but some things are quite direct. For instance, like we kind of stole the typeface, you know, appropriated in a bit. I think if you turn to the next page, so you see this book was meant to act both as a book and like a small exhibition you can have in your living room if you want. Also, we did this to make it, to avoid making hardcover, and so make it cheaper, basically. And so, so we used kind of typeface. Also, the if you turn, like you look at the pictures, I think they also, not this one. That's something I'm gonna go back after. There is some connection with the kind of pictures we see, like the statics. And that was just a coincidence. So that's why, like, seeing these books, like, oh, so this, like, these pictures look a lot like mine. So I'm gonna hold on to this. and use this same dirty trick that you use, like let's use aviation to talk about architecture and society. But instead I'm going to use aviation to talk about a biographic experience. So I'm inverting things in a way, turning them upside down, copying, but also denying, avoiding things. So it's also, I think, not doing what's there is also a compliment to the to the design work.
Also, an object that looks like a technical manual.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to copy this. Yeah, we wanted to copy.
So that's why it's called How to Fly.
Yeah.
It's to look like it's a technical book, but at the end,
it's not.
It's not.
And the irony, it's already here, because of course it's not how to fly. It's like how not to fly. Right? You don't want to crash and die. So yeah. So I think it's pretty much like brief introduction.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I can see, to defend myself a little bit, I could say that I can see that there is a clear dialogue between the books, but I was struck by this, the boldness and the blackness of the Corbusier, both the typography and how it's the design, and then it's like, it's such a statement. And then you show me this book who is much more vague and much more white space and so, but they are definitely in dialogue.
Absolutely.
With each other. And I think that's maybe an interesting starting point. Do you think are you the book you presented and that you wished you would have published, it's changed maybe how you think about what kind of books you publish, but are you in dialogue with it, like as an object, you reference it in the design of other books, or did it just affect what book submissions you take on or not?
No, I think for me it works especially on that level, that it's, I think about that book a lot. There's another one which is somehow a similar story, so I don't learn quickly, but I think about this a lot. If something is presented which you can agree, yeah, this is good, and it can fit, and should we then add something to it? So yes, but not in a design kind of way, I think. No, not. It's more on a lower level.
So if I would be nasty and ask you to try to define if you would say, like, what are the components that you look for in this perfect book, or when you maybe not look for it, usually they just appear, or you just happen to stumble upon a book and it's this wow book. What would be the factors that make it a wow book?
In general, or how I try to see it, if it would fit to our publishing?
No, in general.
In general.
It could be something published.
Yeah.
Or maybe, yeah, I think I'm thinking about something published, that when you go to a book fair or into a bookstore, like, and you see this book and it's like, wow.
Yeah, I'm in situations like this at fairs. I'm a very bad visitor. I'm better behind the table, and it has to do with that. For me, looking at books is always quite intense. So if I look at one or two tables, I'm sort of my head is full with because there's so much things to reflect. Sometimes it's very practical that I look at it as a designer because of I don't know, typefaces used, of the way how things are bound, and I look at books as from content point of view as a reader, and I look at book as a publisher. So I have all this different. And for a long time I was teaching, and then you also look through the eyes of your students, and so there's so much things to reflect on when seeing books and seeing also publishers presenting their work. So I try to always, there's a lot of ways to answer that question actually, and I don't really have a very clear answer to that besides this, that it's very intense to look at things, and I try to engage with everything that I see, but that has its limits. So it's sort of dodging the question. And
do you have this kind of, can you say, if you think back about books that is kind of dream books, or like books that you really like, do they have things in common that you can say, like, oh, usually it's because this and this is happening that way when you look at dream books, or when you find a dream book?
Sorry, I'm having some problem hearing.
Oh, so what would you say if you think about your bookshelf and your the dream books that you have bought? Do they have things in common? Is it a materiality or the combination of content or the design, or do they have things in common when you stumble upon those things?
I think there's definitely a lot of materiality in the books we like. So content, subject matter is of course, it's got to be there. But I'm personally, I think Tiago to be like, Tiago runs a binding project, so of course there's fetishism about all things paper related. The printing, the small details, like all these, paper is been here for thousands of years, but it still has a temper that hasn't been mastered. So we don't really know what paper does when we do something to it. And so I guess the combination of all these things, sometimes they are successful in a way that I cannot even describe myself. It's like something that you just, strikes you. And we buy these books and put them on our shelves and use them as inspiration for other books. And I think the same thing is what as publishers, all publishers, I think, in different ways, that's where they try to achieve. It's like this combination of like great work with like experimental binding, advanced printing, or not so advanced, but organic, sort of something that's might help to set your books apart from the books that you see everywhere. Like I'm talking about more like independent publishers, I think.
Do you think it's because when I get a book proposal and I always have, and you think about it, or you have this work on this, and then in my head this book is like, wow, this is going to be the dream book, and it's in my head, it's all perfect until I start sketching it, and then reality comes falling down on me, and like, oh, okay, but this will not work. And it's like, do you think it's possible to create your own dream books when you're publishing? Have you ever felt that, or have you ever or do you recognize what I'm talking about, that you strive to make this perfect object, and then in the end, I'm happy with all of my books, but there's still this feeling that it could have been.
Yeah, I think, well, there's the way I work, there's always like two people trying to make their dream book, and which has to come together to make one book. Because and I always like this first conversation that I always ask them, what kind of book do you have in mind? Like very basic hardcovers or big, small, what's indeed your dream book that you envision this should be? And then you can have a talk about it. Oh, I was thinking like completely different. I was thinking maybe it should be small because of the intimacy of the images. And like having this goal in mind, I think is very important, because it can sharpen the idea much more by talking about it. Because it's interesting to know, do you like it because you saw another book which is successful and is hardcover and has this specific way of printing? Yeah, that's nice, but how does that, does it add something to your own project, or are you just somehow shopping around like interesting things? And I think in the end, like every book should follow its own rules and should make sense as one new body of work. But these discussions, and then it becomes, and if that works, then I think it becomes a dream book. If it's a collaborative act, that everything falls exactly in the right moments, in the right place, with the right team, and the right printing, right binding, then that's great. That's great to achieve together. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's mainly about understanding and how organizing, as you said, the team. It's understanding who is the perfect designer for a specific project. What's the specific paper we're going to use for those images, or the place we're going to print it and bind it. you know, the main difficulty, I guess, and biggest challenge on editing and or being an editor is exactly to manage all the elements of the team to create this possibly perfect object or perfect book. But as Anne said, is at the end, sometimes, and that's where it lies the difference between editing our own work as photographers or editing someone else's work. Because when you're editing someone else's work, you can be more clear and methodic on understanding what's the perfect solution for each element. But when you're trying to do your own work, then you want to you wanted to create this perfect element, and you want to do everything at the same time. And at the end, it's just being very specific and clear about choices and go straight to the point, I guess.
Yeah, I recognize that from the process of making books with artists, since I'm always the designer when I collaborate with an artist, that it's quite a good position to not be in the middle of the artwork yourself, but have this kind of one step to the side distance to it, because it allows you to suggest those things that hurts a bit, but it will make the better book in the end, sort of. And I could never do, I couldn't imagine doing that to my own work, but I could, if you're outside, you can see, but for the book, this will be the better thing. So I really recognize that position.
But even for us, as we are two in the team, and we are actually kind of opposites in a way.
Yeah.
we clash a lot, and it's at the end it's a bit of a chaotic experience to make all of the books. So at the end, sometimes Pedro involves more in a book, and I get involved more in the other book.
Yeah, so we'll learn what's best for each one of
So
them.
at the end, it's very intuitive, the way we make these choices on how maybe I'm working better for a specific subject or a specific book, or because I have a more intimate relation with that author and it works better, that personal relation, which is so important for us. Exactly, just as Anne says, it's so important for us to work with people that we know and
to be physically with them.
And to be physically
it's also
with them.
something I think Anne was trying to stress, that it's really important to be with people.
Yeah, I think it's also to succeed. Part of the key, perhaps, to this, let's call it a dream book or a book that kind of works, or you like kind of think, okay, this is doing the job. This book is this building of trust between who you are working with and you between the artist and me, for example. We have to really trust each other. So of course I listen if the artist has a suggestion for the graphic design, but on the other hand, I'm also like a little bit of an editor, so they have to listen, or they listen if I have something that kind of will change the content of the book a bit. And that you have, if you feel that this trust is not there, then it's not going to be a really good book, because it's going to be compromises, sort of. Do you recognize this kind of negotiations in your process?
Yeah, I do, and it's great if it works, but sometimes it doesn't work, and then it's. Two times I had to very far in the project. Then I realized we are looking for a completely different book, and this dialogue should always be open. So you both should be willing to move towards each other. And if one of the two doesn't move, then it's you're heading for destruction. That doesn't work. So it's really should be about equality and trust, but also really about listening to each other. And one time that was extremely painful. It was very late in the process, and I said, it's sort of okay-ish, the book, but it could have. I envision it. I think our visions are completely different, so we should stop. And that was I hated to do it, but in the end, I think it was the right decision.
Did it finalize as a book with you, or did you just stop the project and it went?
I stopped the project and we got in a terrible argument about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was, and I realized, and looking back, I think I already knew a few months before that this was maybe going, but then we were already so far. So you think, okay, I have responsibility as well, and let's try everything what you say, and then at a certain point you reach like a point that you think, yeah, but this is not, it's not okay. I don't think this is working, and it was like really like big differences in the end. But it's horrible then to leave in a bad way, and now we avoid each other, and I don't like that. Yeah.
No, I've stopped projects, but earlier, realizing that no, we're not gonna.
Yeah, early is fine. I think.
Or we're not. When you sense that no, there is no. This trust is never gonna happen. This will just be a struggle, and we will just compromise.
Yeah, but then you can also advise. Maybe this is the better team. Maybe this designer. Maybe this publisher.
Maybe you should go to.
That's constructive.
Yeah. Then you can go to this publisher or this graphic designer, sort of. So I think also going back to your story, the importance of choosing the projects that you think that I will really. This is a topic that suits. Me as a designer or publisher, or my interest. Like, you can get fantastic images, but if you don't feel that you're going to be able to really engage with them, or if it's a genre you're not used to working with, I know that I'm not going to be able to make a book on certain kinds of like fashion or music. There are other publishers and designers that are brilliant at that. So I think that's also finding the right teams. How about you? Do you negotiate, apart from falling out with each other, but you seem quite happy here at least?
Because
it works. At the end it works.
We found out a way to, transform these clashes into a positive thing.
Yeah.
But you also told me yesterday when we were talking about those negotiations that you start your books with a residency.
Yeah, nowadays, the way artists approach a publishing house, it's usually, I don't know if it's your experience, Hans, but it's usually already with a dummy, something they've done themselves. So there is already some degree of design work embedded in the proposals we get. And like 99% of the times, we reject what's already done. First, because it's not our work, and second, most of the time it doesn't work. Because photographers, they make terrible graphic designers most of the time, and like speaking for myself.
No, some are really good, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's my experience. Maybe you're right, and I'm just being bad. But anyway, so we decided that it was probably better to, level everyone at the same common ground, by instead of discussing what to change in the proposals we get, it's like, let's start from scratch and let's call this a residency. So if you want to publish with us, so first we're gonna invite you to stay with us for a month usually.
Minimum 1 month.
Minimum 1 month. We'll try to find you a place to stay, sometimes our houses, or we rent something. And we offer the studio space we already have with all the machinery, like scanners, studio, everything you need to complete the basis of what's going to be in the book, like space for writing, for proofreading, wherever. And so this makes the author be in contact with us for a prolonged amount of time, like this month, more or less, that you're speaking about. And this naturally allows us to, in a very human way, to, start discussing the thing without being discussing it, can we go and have a meal together, but not as work, but as just space of bubble of time that we book for ourselves.
It's basically a structured program to allow us to create a more collaborative work together with the authors, but also with the designers, and sometimes when we have the extra funding, we do invite external editors or other authors with more experience on editing to work as invited editors together with the authors. We also do that when we feel that a specific theme or a specific artist that we see the potential of the project, or we see the potential of the artist to create a book, but we are not so comfortable ourselves to edit the work. And so we invite someone who we know that is going to make a very good team with that other author we're inviting to publish. So last year we did 4 books with this structure, with this system, and we are doing 4 new books this year with the same system. And yeah, the idea is it's a 1-year program with a residency, with which involves also the team of designers, and then we work as kind of supervisors and linking everyone together. So that's it.
That sounds like a dream. I wish I could offer my the artists I work with that, but sorry, but do apply. But I think, do we have any questions? We're almost out of time. So are there any questions to the publishers from the audience?
I've said everything.
No? So then I think it's been really nice to discuss this with you, and I think it's super hard to pinpoint what makes this dream book happen, but I for sure always know when I have it in my hand, sort of, and then being on the other side of trying to make that dream book yourself is also this part of of everything falling into place and the negotiation, and at the end of the day also who you are collaborating with.
So I think it's a very personal thing.
Yep.
I mean, at least I talk to myself. The books that I collect, and I try to, every fair that we go and we participate, I always try to at least buy 1 book to take. I always buy more, but it's like I have this ruled minimum. I will take 1 book home. Also depending on the amount of books we sold. So
that's the golden rule of publishers, that you should try to not buy more books than you sell, but that has never worked out. But
no, especially with the luggage when you go back.
Yeah, it's you ship out 23 kilos of books and then you bring back 37. How does that happen every fair?
Happens sometimes,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what I try to do is always to focus on those that really, for some even unconscious reasons, stuck with me, or I don't know, hit me in a certain way,
To
or are
maybe
meaningful personally.
So maybe to finish up, do you have, we have a lot of photographers here, and I'm sure quite a few of them would like to publish their dream book or design their dream book. So one piece of advice to them.
I go last.
You go last. Pedro, you just volunteer to go first.
I don't know. I should know because I've been in all these stages, like myself, so I should have an answer what to do. Well, start a publishing house. No.
Okay, that's the first. Start your own publishing house.
Like
that's
if you
great.
have many friends want to do the same thing, I think we have all been there. Why not, start something and see if it grows? If you want to go solo, I think you should definitely show your work to as many people as possible. Hopefully not photographers and designers, but like people like your neighbors, people who have nothing to do with photography, I think it's important because suddenly they see what you don't see because they are so blind with like, your own thing that you don't see. So maybe talk to people, your mom, your neighbor, the butcher,
Get your mom involved. You start your own publishing, get your mom involved. Diego?
No, I think that I see, and I think we all also passed through that we published our own books, but everyone is very eager to publish a book. Every student in every photography school everyone wants to make a book. And I think that sometimes people don't realize that not every good work makes a good book, or not every good exhibition makes a good book. And even not every good book makes a good exhibition. So a lot of the times when people show me a work that they want to publish, the question that I always do is, but why? Why do you want to publish this work? Why do you want to produce 100, 500 copies of this specific work? Who is it for? Who are you communicating this to? And what is this work going to change in the environment around you? Is it just for your very small group of friends, or is it something more wide? And I think it's an important question to ask to oneself when you are creating a work that you want to publish.
Yep,
Because
I think that's super. It's very basic in a way and very hard in another way, but to really ask, why am I doing this? Is this a business card because it's necessary for me right now, or is this because I want to investigate something that can only be made into a book? And there are so many reasons, but to be honest with yourself, the reasons why I publish is
90% of the time people are a bit shocked with my question.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But then I think that they realize that it's a work that needs more work, and or even it's not yet the right project, because most of the times it's also their first project.
Yep.
And the main thing is to be a bit responsible about the platform and the use of materials, and
Yes, the trail we all live in Amazonas with our books. Yes.
So be meaningful.
And if you're not sure, just go for zines, I think. The world needs zines.
The world needs zines, yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Hans, do you need more time, or
No,
you're
I'm
fine?
No, but I think if you think of starting making a book, it's good to somehow surround yourself with books as well, because I still do that. There's always on my table there are books which I maybe sometimes the most interesting are the ones you don't completely understand why you're triggered to it. But there are always piles of books that I want to dive into, or that there's something there and I don't know. And I think that's good to somehow surround yourselves with books, because that's your goal, to be part of that world. So I think that's good, and go to places like this, and also look at books. Try to be surprised, or go to second-hand shops and then you're completely surprised, and these kind of things. So, but have books around to begin with. That's the basic thing. I mean, like a musician needs music, bookmakers needs books.
I think those are beautiful words. Bookmakers needs books. So I would like to thank you so much for taking the time. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
enjoy your time here. Thank you.
Thank you.